That's Harold B. Reilly. That's Harold Bamford Reilly.
So when and where were you born?
Waltham, 11/8/20, November 8, 1920. In the same house that my father was born in.
Is that
in Waltham.
Did you spend most of your childhood in Waltham?
All the winters and off seasons. My grandmother had a guest house in Plymouth, and my mother was there in the summer, and so I had to follow. And so when school finished in June and when it restarted, I came back to Waltham, but the rest of the time I was in Plymouth. My grandfather there was a fisherman. He was a lobsterman, and I grew up in that atmosphere, and I still like it.
Did you work with him?
No, he was gone before I came along. He died very young. He was a fireball. He accomplished an amazing lot of things in his short life. A house and garden and a boat building business, and I wonder how he did it all. But he was a remarkable guy.
What were some of your more exciting childhood experiences there?
My childhood, what?
Any exciting childhood experiences that you had?
No, I would say that it was normal, dull, because in those days there weren't too many exciting things.
Yeah.
You know, we didn't have that. We just kind of lived by the book and accepted what came along.
What was it like when the war began?
When the what?
When World War II began?
Well, at that particular time, I was a student in dental school at Harvard, and on a Sunday morning, a classmate of mine in Newton called, and he said, "Did you hear that we've been attacked at Pearl Harbor?" Which didn't actually have to happen, but it did. They had been forewarned, but you know, when you're not prepared for that, you are prepared by the book, but not practically, you know, and that's what happened. So it was a terrible thing, and when my classmate called, he says, "You know, this means that we're all going into the war." And it wasn't a choice. They were going to get us anyway, but we couldn't wait to go in.
Yeah.
Because never in our lifetime had we experienced anything like this.
So you're looking forward to it?
Oh yes. Well, I don't know. We were just swept up.
Yeah.
And here we were going to defend the country, but everybody wanted to go. Nobody wanted to stay home. And now people would think twice about it, because war certainly is not an end to anything good. It was just something that we went through, and I don't know that we learned a heck of a lot, because here we ever since have been on the edge with other countries, but we still have a few veterans. I spent 4 years in, and since we were in a junior year in school, they decided that we would stay in school, and actually either the Army or the Navy would pay our tuition, and but we were in uniform, not as officers, but we were just infantrymen, you know. And
What branch of the military were you in?
pardon?
What branch of the military were you in?
What
What branch?
Oh.
Army or Navy?
Well,
or?
at this point, when we were still in school, we were as low as you could get. And we lived pretty well. We lived in a very nice housing that the medical school had, and all of the conveniences. The only thing that troubled us was it was a strict Army schedule where you might get up at 5:30 in the morning or something like that, and that didn't somehow fit with homework and all that stuff.
So
but-
you were in college when this happened?
Yeah,
What college did you go to?
I was in Harvard Dental at the time, and so I was in uniform the first year while I was a student, and then late in the year I graduated and was commissioned first lieutenant, which was pretty low, but that's where we entered.
So
And traveled around the country, and for myself, I served largely in the dental corps. But at that time, in a time of war, you might be called to other kinds of duty, which I was. And I traveled through a good part of Europe and Africa, Italy, France, and shuttling prisoners around. And only once or twice did I ever hear shells raining down when they were meant for us. Of course, in an area of wartime, things are kind of mixed up.
Yeah.
You don't really know what's going on. I've been in areas where the radio that would announce that it had been retaken by the Germans, and that was not true, but it was hard to get detailed information because as things happened, many of them were secret anyway.
Yep.
You know, so. But it was not too bad, and then I came back and shuttled around
So
maybe 5 or 6 general hospitals in the United States.
So how many years did you, or were you in
4
Europe?
years. 4 years.
Were you in Europe for all 4 of them, or
No,
just a
no,
few?
no, maybe part of one.
Oh,
But wherever they needed us, we went.
Okay. What was one of the more memorable parts of your military experience?
As far as the war went,
Yeah.
it was a completely new experience. This was something that we had never expected. And you just take it
Hmm.
and you're happy with it. You know,
Yeah.
it got us in good shape, running up and down mountains and things like that in training.
Yep.
And but while we were protected to a degree, our friends, classmates, many of them had already been lost. I think my senior class in Waltham High was not too many graduated, but there were many dozens who were killed. And this was a blow to us, because often we heard a commanding officer telling us that we were going into a certain area and we were all not going to come out, but you accept it, and everybody's in the same boat. And but I never stopped thinking about those that made the major sacrifice, you know, and it's still happening.
Yeah.
You know, you could go to Afghanistan or something like that.
Did you ever see combat during the war?
Not really. We have, in the Mediterranean, we did have some nighttime attacks, but we could hear them and see them, and the first time that I was in that position, I grabbed a helmet and a life jacket and ran up to the bridge. And then I realized that these guys are shooting at us. Well, what the hell am I doing up here? But you get used to that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a different experience. You know, but I did always feel for the veterans who didn't make it and who were injured, and I still have that feeling that there's no excuse to put anybody's life in danger.
Did you find it difficult coming back home?
No, by this time, when you've been in the Army for 4 years, you learn a lot of angles and how to make it easier for yourself. And you, by this time, gone up in rank, and you have a better life and travel.
Yep.
What was your favorite story from your deployment in the war?
Of my work?
Yeah.
Yeah, what was your favorite story, just a favorite moment while you were at
Do you have
the war?
something that stands out in your head as something that, like something weird that happened over there that you, like any
Well,
weird stories or anything?
there were times when our lives were at risk,
Mm-hmm.
you know, when officers in control might leave you open to attack and things like that. And that was right. That was a little difficult, because especially when the first couple of years you don't have any authority really. Although in a theater of war, all kinds of things can happen. I mean, you can order anything. We were in a position to carry out our will, as it were. We would go into towns, and we could pretty much do what we wanted. One problem we had was that people in certain areas, when the Americans were trying to get the Germans out, and they would bomb, and they left many towns pretty much destroyed.
Mhm.
And this didn't set well with the people that lived there. We were friendly, but they didn't care to have their town
Yep.
shot all to heck, but that's the way it goes.
So speaking of like the bombings and everything, when the U.S. dropped the bomb on Japan, do you think that was necessary, or do you think we could have gone without doing that?
That will always be a question. I don't think that ever is there an excuse to kill 80, 90,000 people.
Mhm.
And that I can't see. And I don't know how much we've learned. It's difficult.
What is your outlook on the war now that you look back on it?
Well, it shouldn't have happened. And, you know, the day of the bombing at Pearl Harbor,
Mhm.
they had been forewarned that there was a flight of planes coming in. But, you know, it's not something that's never happened before. You're not as alert and sharp as you should be. They were warned, but nobody seemed to do anything. We could have stopped the war right there. If we, it was a Sunday morning, and if we had got all of the people that manned guns and everything else and anti-aircraft, we could have destroyed that flight of Japanese planes that were coming in. There never would have been a war. But we lost 2 bombs, big ships, and hundreds, if not thousands, of people, and we were in it, but it shouldn't have happened. And I hope we never see it again.
Well, thank you for letting us interview, Grandpa. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.